Then are you going into the office tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah.
What's the day look like? What's tomorrow specifically?
So, typical day for me. So I don't know if you know what my title and my role is.
Yeah,
So I am vice president at local plumbing company, and we're a commercial plumbing company that does, wineries, big industrial buildings, things like that. We don't do a lot of residential stuff, but we just do big construction jobs. We've got 51 employees. And my role specifically is to sort of direct the construction. Like we have like a service plumbing, which they do like repair and maintenance and things.
Yeah.
And then we have a construction side. And so I'm in charge of all the construction side.
So service is like plumbing that's already been installed and
something breaks or is leaking or gets plugged up or something like that.
And you oversee the aspect that's building like from scratch?
Brand new.
Okay.
Yep. So all the brand new stuff. So I have a team, and my team consists of 3 estimators. They're estimator and project manager. So what they do is they will look at a project, that comes across our desk, basically from different resources, different websites that sort of warehouse projects that are available to bid on. We look at those, decide which ones we're going to go after, and then we go after them. So my job is to kind of make sure that those guys are fed with projects to look at, all that kind of stuff. Once they land the project, then they manage it to completion.
So you go out and find those 3 guys' projects?
I mean, they have their own resources too, but I kind of just make sure their plates are full. So a lot of what my job is, we'll see like, so-and-so contractor is building this. We don't really do work for them. Let's figure out what they're all about. So I'll, figure out who their contacts are, reach out to them, go to their place of business, figure out how we can do business together.
Like poaching clients kind of thing?
Not necessarily. It's more or less, just building a relationship. And, if we don't have a relationship with them, then, hey, I'll take them out to lunch. We'll get to know each other a little bit, figure out what projects they have coming up, try to create opportunities.
That kind of sounds like sneaking around, like, because everyone's kind of got their plumbing guy already. So you're just trying to like sneak in there, invite him to dinner a couple of times.
And here's the thing is there's, lots of different plumbing companies, right? And so what sets us apart? We're going to show up on time. We're going to do it right. We're going to put qualified people on the job, and they're going to have a successful turnover to their client without any problems, right? And so if we can execute that every single time, then that's how we build the relationships. But all we need is one opportunity. And that's kind of what my job is to try to create that one opportunity. And then now we've built a client for life in most cases.
How do you get those high-level people around you? Because to execute and be perfect and to actually build a company that can follow the orders that the people above see and the vision they have for, I guess, keeping the promise of being the best person they can have.
It's creating a good culture. We have an amazing team of plumbers. There's a lot of training. Every other month, we have a training in the office where we bring the guys from the field in, and we'll train them on a certain aspect of, maybe like, we're falling short a little bit on a certain thing, whether it's, timeliness of completion or quality of work or something like that. And then we'll train on that. And we'll say, okay, guys, here's the things that we've been seeing. Let's get trained up. This is how we want you guys to execute in the field to be more successful. And then we get them trained up. So I think that constant training of guys, keeping them the best of the best is what sets us apart, because a lot of other companies just throw the guys out in the field and expect them to be successful. And we have a different philosophy. Our philosophy is, not everyone's perfect, but we're going to make you perfect. We're going to train you, and we're going to have a system that everybody follows. Doesn't matter if you're on this job site or that job site, or you're working with this guy or that guy, everybody follows that system. And then that system creates excellence, basically.
How do you find these people?
It's tough. It's really tough.
I bet.
That's part of my role too, is, I'm in charge of hiring and firing.
Like a HR type of role?
No, I mean, we have an HR component, but they mostly leave it up to me. I've been in this trade for 30 years. This is my 30th year.
Wow.
Being in it.
Wow.
So I kind of have a smell test, and I can see through BS a lot of times, and so interviewing guys, I know the right questions to ask.
Like what? If you were gonna interview me, how would it go?
I
Say
would
I'm
say
fresh out of, would it be trade school?
trade school. Yep,
I'm fresh out of trade school.
yep.
I want to get hired into local plumbing.
So to back up a step from that is we love to get guys in before they go to trade school, and then we train them as they go through trade school. So we kind of like basically mold them into who we need them to be
Really?
for the success of the company and go from there. So that's my favorite way to do it, is to take, somebody, for instance, that's just graduating from high school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe college isn't right for them, but they're really good working with their hands. They've worked on cars, or they've helped people build stuff around the house or something like that. So they've got that mechanical sense of like how things go together and how to operate tools and things like that. So then we take that and then we mold them into who we need them to be.
So are you like, I guess what I'm picturing is like a scout, like that goes to soccer games and like stands in the corner and like writes notes on his little notebook.
A lot of that.
You go to like the schools and walk around the shop classes?
I go to the schools, and we have a lot of outreach to different schools, and we try to like corral those people and get them to be interested in the trades. We also go to, there's sometimes like at the convention center, they'll have like a bunch of different businesses and things like that where kids can walk around and get information about stuff they might be interested in and kind of create a path which way they want to go. So I'll go to those things and I'll just talk to kids and say, hey, what do you like doing? What are you interested in? And get a feel for what kind of person they are.
Yeah.
And then if they're the right kind of person, then we kind of mold them from there. So that's pretty cool. And then I also sit on the apprenticeship board. So the trade school is called an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
It's 4 years, and it's on the job training. And then at night, 2 nights a week, you go to school for 3 hours. At Clackamas Community College, and then at the end of that, you actually get your degree in mechanical technology, and then you're off and running.
So, like, when you say I'm out of high school, do you offer me like a promise? Is it like a word is bond type of thing, where I say, well, maybe I want to go into this, maybe I'll go into the trade. You say, if you go to this trade for 4 years and learn how to do it, I promise you'll get this spot 4 years from now. Is that how you do it?
Yes. More or less. Yep. So once you get out of trade school, you're an apprentice during that trade period. And then once you get out, you take a state test that certifies you as a journeyman plumber for the state of Oregon. And then once you're a journeyman plumber, you can go out and plumb for us on any job. You don't have to work underneath somebody, where an apprentice has to work underneath a journeyman because they're being taught, they're learning.
Wait, what's the difference between an apprentice? Like, how do you because I know what an apprentice is,
mm-hmm.
But how do you become not an apprentice? Is there like a way to skip that step?
No, you have to. So state of Oregon mandates that you have to go through 4 years of school. You have to have 8,000 on the job training hours before you can even qualify to take the state test for Oregon. So there's no like getting around it. You have to go through the whole process.
So to be a plumber, it's high school. You don't even have to graduate, do you?
Yeah. So you have to graduate from high school, and then you have to have a minimum of Algebra 1, which most people have usually by middle school. Yeah. So those are the prerequisites to even become an apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have those, then you can become an apprentice, go through the 4 years.
So high school, trade school, apprenticeship for...
Nope, apprenticeship is part of the trade school. So those are congruent with each other.
Oh, that's like the 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
You learn, what do you learn?
You learn all aspects of plumbing. So you learn...
4 years is a long time.
4 years is a long time. It's a commitment. It's definitely a commitment. But, you learn all the systems of plumbing. So water supply, like how to size a water system so that it'll actually work in a house. Mm-hmm. How to size the drain system so that you don't have backups and things like that. There's all kinds of fittings that have to go in a certain direction and certain way and all that kind of stuff. So learning all that, it takes a lot of time and a lot of...
It's all essentially like real world applicable things that college doesn't really give you.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is plumbers are in such demand because there's not a lot of people that want to go. That still has a stigma to it, about being blue collar jobs and things like that. But the truth is you go through, I think when you start out as an apprentice, you're making about $50,000 a year just from the start.
So like your
Oregon,
first year out of high school, you're making 50 grand.
mhm. Oregon establishes that you must pay your apprentices a certain wage, and every 6 months you get basically a pay raise. You get a re-rate, and so you go up. So by the time you graduate at the end of that 4 years and you get your journeyman card, you're typically making $100,000 plus a year right out of trade
And
school.
you're saying people don't want to do that? There's a demand for it?
There's a demand for it. It's hard to find people to do it because it sounds great, right? Sounds like oh my gosh, I'd love $100,000 a year. That sounds great.
Well,
But
and if because
it's a
like
lot of
you've
hard
done
work.
it for like 30 years, right? So you can stay. Clearly, you can stay in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not going to lose your job once you learn how to do the trade.
You can't outsource it, right? Like there's no, it has to take a person that can put in this kind of stuff. It can't be outsourced. So, it's a pretty secure position, and plumbing constantly has to be maintained and taken care of, or you can flood your house. Water heaters are going out.
So it's
things
not
like
going
that.
anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
So why do you think people aren't
I think
shifting that direction?
I think they're, part of my outreach to high schools and things like that is to sort of break that stigma of, this is a good paying job, and if you put the hard work in, you can do it. But people still have a stigma of like, oh, plumber. I mean, when I got into it, I certainly wasn't like guiding myself down this path of like, being a little kid dreaming of being a plumber.
Oh yeah.
I kind of fell into it, and I'm thankful for it. It all worked out really good, but there's just not a lot of people that have dreams of being that. They want to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what about like, I still want to be hired. I want to be hired. I'd like to be hired.
okay. So go back to that.
Yeah.
So I would ask you about your experience. Like a lot of times it's the background. Like what do you like doing? What do you do for fun?
I play sports. I play soccer, basketball. You're talking about outside of my trade school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just before I even hire you, like we're just sitting down, seeing if you're going to be a good candidate for becoming a plumber.
I like sports. I like cars. I know a little bit about cars, and that's pretty much what I like to do.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever used power tools or worked on anything, like put something together?
Yeah, I've helped my dad in the garage a few times. When he asks for help, I'll help him.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work out in the backyard and that sort of thing.
You're not scared of hard work?
No.
Perfect. So two indicators right there, right? Sports is a huge thing for me. If I know a guy that has been in sports, I know he can work as a team, right? Mm-hmm. For me, that's what sports sort of lends itself is. How can we work together as a team to achieve a common goal?
What if I tell you I'm a tennis player or a golf player?
It's perfectly fine because it still takes commitment, takes practice.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to maintain that and to get to a certain level, even if it's an individual sport, right? Mm-hmm. You're still putting in the time, you're putting in the practice, you're committed to that, that sport. And so for me, that's a huge thing. Like that's like checks a box right off the bat, is if there was any kind of sports at all, that's huge.
Sports right? Like the number one thing. Mm-hmm. Is there like anything else that you look for? You said that's box number one.
That's box number one for sure, definitely. And it speaks to just character, I mean, you have to, typically people that play sports have a good character, good work ethic, things like that. If it's somebody that's never done anything, they've just sat in their mom's basement for the last 10 years playing video games, I may not be as, as into it. I can
see that.
It's not a no, but it's a, it's sort of a key indicator. But if you were in sports, that's huge. And then, the second question that I asked was, have you ever worked with your hands or worked with tools or things like that? And even just having a little bit of experience, you might know that you like it,
But, and this is what you go through at one of those conventions that you said?
Mm-hmm.
So saying, I'm still in high school right now, and if I didn't know what I wanted to do, this would be like your sheet of what you're going to ask?
Yes. And then based on that information, I'd say you'd be a great candidate for this role, and here's why. You've got a work ethic, team and work ethic. You've worked with your hands before. This could be a really good fit for you. And in 4 years, you could be making $100,000 a year. How does that sound? It's usually pretty good.
What do they usually say?
They're usually excited about it, but it does take hard work. It is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It is, being out in the rain, working or in the
It's not
snow
for
or the sun.
everyone.
It's not for everybody, and that's probably our biggest turnover. Is people are excited about it. They want to do it. They're excited about the money aspect of it.
Yeah.
But once they actually get into it, it's the work is too hard. It's
So
too
people
demanding.
quit
Mm-hmm.
during, when do they quit? Not
Um,
after. It can't be after the trade school.
Usually it's not after the trade school. It's usually in the first year to 2 years of trade school.
Mm.
And they just kind of peter out and they say, this isn't the trade that I want to be in. This isn't the kind of work that I want to do. I'm going to go find something else to do.
So it's just like a lack of hard work, you think?
Yeah, just just the realization of that it's not, there's nothing going to be given.
That 100
It
grand a
has
year
to
isn't
it has to be earned.
handout money.
Right. It has to be earned, and you have to bring it every single day.
Mm.
Because we have an expectation of our guys to, like I said before, to get projects done right, to get them on time, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of pressure on those guys in the field to say, okay, we've got to have this and this done by Friday, and they got to go do it. They got to go get it done. And if you can't do it, then you're not meeting the muster, and we've got to find somebody else that can do it.
Mm.
So
you said part of your job is also the getting people over the stigma. That's the word you use. The stigma of plumbing.
Yep.
Is there like a common misconception about what you do?
I think so. There's the cliche of, plumbers are big, fat guys with beards and butt cracks and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is there are some guys like that.
Really? It's not just like a TV movie thing?
Not in our company. There's not any guys like that.
Okay,
our guys
good.
are very professional, very courteous, and they would probably have to tell you that they were a plumber. You wouldn't know it right off the bat.
Oh, like they carry themselves with like
absolutely
level of professionalism.
Yeah, we call it being squared away. So my boss, who's the owner of the company, he was a Marine vet, and so he's very like our company is ran like a military. It's very like put together, organized. We have standard operating procedures for everything that we do. So how we do it, why we do it, all those kinds of things. And then part of it is being squared away. We have cool gear that we give the guys, so they're always outfitted in shirts, hats, things like that, so they look presentable. They look like they're set up for success.
So you like put them, I guess, in their mind. You make it so that they're at the top level and give them all these high level things, so they have to perform to that level.
Correct. Yep.
That's a smart way to look at it.
Definitely. And it's another way it sets us apart. When we show up, we have all the tools to do the job. We make huge investments in tools and equipment, in vans. A typical van that a guy works out of, it might be like $60,000 for the van, and then we outfit it with tools. So we'll probably put $40,000 worth of tools on that van so that they can be successful with all the top of the line, best tools that can be had, so that they can go through and do a great job.
One of the last guys I interviewed, his name was Sergeant Rudy Sines.
Okay.
He was a Marine.
Okay.
15 years of being a Marine. And he told me the stat that's kind of crazy. 1/3 of all Fortune 500 companies have a Marine leader, like a CEO.
I believe it.
So even like through sports, through the Marines, just that level of commitment, whatever it brings, there's got to be a stat connecting successful people to sports, and I guess Marines and being around other high level people.
Yeah, I think there totally is, because the Marines are the best fighting force in the world, and they have to hold each other to a super high standard. So I think that just transcends. Like once you get out of the Marines and you put it into business practice, it just carries over, and all of a sudden you've got the highest level business person operating the business.
That's actually what I'm going to do.
Yeah?
I'm planning on going to the Marines, yeah.
Nice.
Because I don't think college isn't for me.
Yeah.
I really don't. The idea of going into debt, because I don't like school anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So why would I pay money to go figure out what I want to do?
Right.
I don't want to do school.
You're in huge debt, and then, and then maybe you don't even like the field that you went to school for. And that's
Mm-hmm.
another selling factor with the kids that I meet with too is hey, you know, what we do is we pay for half of your trade school. So every, you know, it's not that expensive. I think it's maybe 7,000, 8,000 through the 4-year term. So, but we'll pay for half of that, right? So immediately half your school's paid for. If you work for us for a year after you become a journeyman plumber, we'll give you that other half back. So literally a year after you become a journeyman
Wow.
plumber, you are completely debt free, nothing, and making a good salary.
So say someone watching wants to get, in contact with you, or wants to start looking into, maybe they want to go to the trades, maybe
Mm-hmm.
college isn't for them. Where can they start looking? Where can they find you?
So it's not necessarily me, you know. I mean, you got to think, you know, the Portland area is full of plumbing companies all over, right? I mean, I'm certainly a resource, but our main point of contact is we call it the Area 1 JATC. And I think JATC stands for Joint Area Training Center. And that's basically, they oversee the apprenticeship. And so if you get in contact with them, you can look them up on the website, Area 1 JATC Plumbers. There's tons of information about how to get into the program, how to apply for it, all the different things that you need to do. And then basically you get put on a list, and then guys like me can pull off that list and say, hey, Xander, I saw you're on the list. You know, can we meet and talk and see? And then I'll start asking some of my
Is it a
questions.
ranked list type of
It
thing?
is. Yep. It's a ranked list, and it's based off of, you know, job experience. Do you have a driver's license? Some schooling things, some placement tests, stuff like that. And then they're on the rank list.
So it's like a stat sheet for like college basketball type of stat sheet.
Pretty much, yep.
Wow.
So the people that are higher on the list are more in demand. And
I didn't realize, I think a lot of people don't realize, like me, how advanced the system is. Like, I didn't even know you were going into high schools and grabbing all these students and pulling them. I literally thought you sign up for trade school, you go through it, and just become a plumber. That's it.
nope, it's pretty advanced. And it's the same for electricians, same for heating, ventilation, air conditioning guys. It's all trade schools, and they're all very similar in the way that they're set up, at least in state of Oregon.
And they're all, I guess, I'm not sure the word I'm looking for. It's like improving. Like technology grows up. The college basketball system has increased. Like as the players get better, the systems get better.
Yep.
Plumbing gets better.
Yep.
Firefighting gets better. Everything just like.
Mm-hmm. The technology aspect of it all is incredible. From where I've come in the last 30 years, now part of my job is, you know, we're working with a technology called BIM, which is building. I forget what BIM stands for, but basically we're working with all the trades, and we're basically taking the plans, putting it together in a 3-dimensional model that you can look on a computer, and we're looking for clashes. Like, oh, we've got electrical and plumbing that are hitting right here. Okay, electrician, you move your stuff up. Plumber, you stay right there. We're building the entire building before we even set foot on the ground in a 3D model.
Holy.
And
wow.
then based on that 3D model, now I can have, like, I know that this pipe length is going to be 10 foot, 7 inches and 3/16 long. And so I can prefabricate all of that plumbing in my shop and bring it out. And all of a sudden we're just boom, 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 boom. So now we've got an efficiency thing. We're getting the schedule done. We're building it faster. We're not having conflicts where, you know, all of a sudden the electrician and the plumbers are intersecting in the field.
Mm-hmm.
It's already been all worked out. So everybody knows where they're going to be, what elevation they're going to be at, all that kind of stuff. And it's that technology is insane.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
That is crazy to think about.
It's really cool. So, you know, most of the guys have tablets in their trucks. And so they're looking at plans on tablets. They're making all their notes. They're ordering materials. They're, you know, interfacing with the...
It's just really like...
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. Advanced.
Yep, exactly. It's like, you know, like real-time information.
Yeah.
You know?
Yo, if y'all made it this far in the video, make sure you hit that subscribe. At 100 subscribes, I will be piercing my ears. Big things are coming. Stay tuned. Let's get back into the video, baby.
So
I'd like to kind of jump back.
Okay.
Like way back towards like high school area.
Okay.
I've kind of talked to Liam about this, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Okay.
How was high school for you?
I was not a fan of high school. It's kind of like what you're saying. I was uninterested, disengaged, not motivated, not inspired. It felt like I was just going through the motions. It was like I have to go through high school, so I'm just going to go through the motions. So it wasn't for me.
Mm.
Um, I don't always like. I'm not. I've never been one that just kind of fit into a box. I've always been kind of an outside the box kind of a
Like
thinker,
creative type of
creative,
person.
and just kind of um, like doing things my own way in a way.
Oh, like a teacher says, I want you to do this, this, and this, and you
Mhm.
don't want to do that.
Or do it. I want you to do it this way to get to an achieved result, but I would do it a different way, but still get to the same result. But I didn't follow their way. I kind of like
Yeah,
to my own drumbeat kind of thing. I would get there, but not in the way they
yeah.
wanted. So it didn't always work.
That
So
sounds real familiar.
yeah. So terrible grades. I just wasn't engaged. I did not think about it and didn't care. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Missed a lot of school. Probably wasn't the best kid.
That's true.
But still, I played football and I was in sports and things like that. And by the time I got real close to your guys' age, I was 17. I was about halfway through my junior year, and I already had a job, was working, and I was like, why am I wasting my time going to school? I like going to my job better. I want to do that. So at 17, I told my parents that I was going to quit high school, get my GED, and go start working in the world and
At
figuring it out.
junior year?
Halfway through my junior year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think GED is halfway through your junior year.
You can, I think, get a GED at any time. So as soon as I got done and went to PCC, got my GED, and essentially by June of my junior year or whatever, I was effectively graduated and done with that part of school, but still didn't know what I wanted to do.
That's pretty sweet though that
where
you
I wanted to
could
go.
get out.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, it's what I wanted to do then, but I did miss out on a lot of stuff. I missed out on proms and graduation stuff, and some of the things that are important with high school. So I definitely don't recommend that path. But
Well, you were an outside the box thinker.
yeah,
You're just doing your own thing.
just doing my own thing.
You got to where you're at, but you just didn't do it the traditional way.
Yep. So still didn't know what I wanted to do. There was a lot of tension between me and my parents with leaving high school and things like that. So at 17, I decided that I was going to move out. So
Wow.
moved out with a friend, got my own apartment, and was just working.
Where'd you work?
So at that point, I've had a job continuously without any gap since I was 14 years old.
Jeez, that's a stat right there.
Mm-hmm. And
Oh,
I'm 49 years old now, so long time.
God.
I'll just kind of go through it kind of quick. My first job was a caddy at Portland Golf Club.
That's a good job.
I love to play golf, and so on the weekends I would go caddy. We got to play for free on Mondays, so I'd go play at Portland Golf Club for free. Learned a lot about people. You're carrying clubs for doctors, lawyers, very high influential people that demand some excellence. So learned a lot about that, but just loved it. After that, I washed cars for a little bit at a car wash, and then got a job at a quick oil change place. I think it's called Jiffy Lube, and was changing oil. And
what age was that?
That was at 17.
Okay.
So still just kind of floating through life, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Had my own place, was just kind of going through life, not really doing much of anything.
You matured fast then.
Maybe
you had to.
I had to, definitely, but I put it on myself. And then when I was working at the oil change place, there was a new car company that was getting started up, and they had opened up a dealership. It was called Lexus. So brand new car company. And I knew they built this new dealership and they had ads out. And so I went and I met with the service manager there. His name was Mitch Wilcox, and interviewed with him, and he loved me. It was like good connection right off the bat, the whole 9 yards. Problem was I was still 17. In order to work for the car dealership and drive their cars around, you had to be 18 to be on insurance.
To
So
drive them?
to drive
Could
them
you just
around,
like sell them or anything? There was no like exception. You had to be
no,
18.
you had to be 18.
Okay.
No exceptions whatsoever.
Okay.
So that was kind of a bummer, but he said, "Hey, I'll keep your information. We'll see where it goes." So on my 18th birthday, he called me and said, "You ready? Come to work for us." So it made an impression on him clearly that he remembered me, put a marker in his calendar to call me on my birthday and hire me. So he called me. I quit my job at the fast food place, and next thing I know, I was 18 years old driving $60,000 cars around.
That's sweet.
And my job was a valet. So people would bring their cars in for service. They needed a ride home or to their work or something like that. I would hop in a car, drive them to their work, all that kind of stuff. So again, getting to connect with people, talking just like you and I are, high level people that
driving Lexuses,
driving Lexuses all around, and was doing that. And then I got promoted to new vehicle inventory specialist. So you've seen like the cars that come off the trucks and they unload them and all that kind of stuff. Well, they have to get checked in. They have to get stock numbers, all that kind of stuff. So that was my job, is to check in all those cars, get the stock numbers, all that kind of stuff. So again, just had a good job, and was kind of doing fun stuff and driving cool cars around and things like that. But I was like, I don't really want to be a car salesman. I don't know what I want to do. And I was down in the detail shop one day, and there was a detailer there, and his wife worked at a bar, and there was this plumbing owner that would go and frequent the bar often, and he was asking her and asking around, like, "Hey, do you guys know anybody that wants to get into the plumbing trades, things like that?" So she wanted her husband to quit his job and become a plumber, but he didn't want to do it.
And what he worked at
Lexus as like a detailer, so they would like wax cars and things like that. Well, I overheard that conversation, and I thought, that sounds interesting. Like maybe I'll reach out to this guy.
I've done everything else. Might as well check that one.
Yeah, might as well see what that's all
about.
Check
that box right there.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up saying, "Hey, I'm interested. Can you put me in contact with this guy that's looking for people?" And so called him up, got an interviewed with him. He thought I was way too young, way too green, didn't have enough life experience, things like that. Wasn't really interested. So I just kept calling him week after week after week after week. Just kept bugging him until finally he said, "Okay, I will give you a job. Stop calling me. Please stop calling me. I'll give you a job. We'll see where it goes. I don't think you're going to work out, but just stop calling me." And so he gave me my start. And I think I was making, when I was working for Lexus, I think I was making $12 an hour. And when I went into the plumbing trades, I took a $4 an hour pay cut. I was making $8 an hour. But I could see that it had better future in it, right? So I was willing to make that change. And there was some tough times. I mentioned the hard work, things like that. And I can remember standing in a plumbing ditch in the pouring rain with just mud everywhere, hard labor, freezing my butt off, and thinking, wow, did I make the right decision? Like last week I was in a warm $60,000 car, cruising around, driving people around, and now I'm standing in a ditch full of mud, the pouring rain. But I'm kind of a guy that doesn't quit very easy on stuff. And so I just stuck with it. And at that point I wasn't even an apprentice. I was just what's called a laborer. So I was either digging a hole or filling a hole in, carrying material to where the guys needed it, things like that.
And that was more fun to you than the...
I don't know if it was more fun, but I could see the end, right? I was meeting these guys that were journeyman plumbers, and they had, good lives and were making good money and things like that. So that was sort of my motivation. But, I was working towards being able to apply for the apprenticeship program. So I was sort of basically proving myself to this owner that didn't want to take a chance on me, but ended up taking a chance on me, that I could do the job and I could show up. And so at that point in time, they were only going to put one apprentice into the program that year. And it was me and another guy that were both laborers. And we were basically trying to out hustle each other to see who would get put in. And so I worked there for maybe 7 or 8 months and worked my tail off. And then we had a company picnic in the middle of the summer. And the owner came up to me and says, "Congratulations, you got the spot. You're going to be an apprentice."
How'd that feel?
Amazing. It was so cool. It was awesome, right? So that fall, started school.
And how old were you?
I was, at that point, I think I was 19.
So you were still young.
Still super young.
Yeah.
Yep. So 19, got into the program, started going to school, started, learning all the things, and just always wanted to learn more. I was trying to learn everything that the journeymen were doing, how they ran jobs, how they did stuff, ask questions, and quickly became kind of a favorite amongst the other plumbers as far as being a good helper, a good guy that was willing to learn and on that kind of stuff. And by the time I was in my 4th year of trade school as an apprentice, I was already running jobs, and basically the boss of other journeyman plumbers, because I had grown my abilities so much that I was capable of running these jobs.
Because of all those questions you asked and all the attention
Yep.
in detail and
Yep.
all that stuff.
Yep. How do you read plans? How do you do this? What's, just constantly asking questions. And I was just a sponge. And the funny thing is through trade school, I got straight A's.
Really?
I got straight A's through the whole thing. I loved it. I was engaged. And
what do you think your high school GPA was?
Oh my gosh, 1.8 maybe. It was terrible. Terrible, right? So
yeah.
So that's an interesting thing, right? Is it right kid, right fit, or right kid, wrong fit? High school was a wrong fit for me, but you put me into something that I was actually interested in and engaged with, and all of a sudden that same kid can get straight A's.
That's bizarre.
Right? So it's an interesting thing to think about. So yeah, finally got through trade school, took my state of Oregon journeyman test, passed it with flying colors, and next thing you know, I was a journeyman plumber. And I think back then, I think I was making maybe like $60,000 a year or something, which was, a lot of money.
A lot of money compared to
2001, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And
but even now, that'd still be all right.
Yeah, still not bad.
19.
Mm-hmm. So here I was, I think I was 20, 22, 23 when I turned out. And all my friends were just kind of getting out of college and things like that, massive amounts of debt, taking minimum wage jobs, doing whatever. And here I was, making $60,000 a year as a plumber and buying my first house.
Wow.
So I bought my first house at 23 years old.
That's cool.
And, just kept working.
And you always were around this area?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I went to Jesuit high school for 1 year. That was a miserable fail because they have pretty high expectations. You can't get a 1.8 at Jesuit and stay there. That'd
be hard to do.
Yeah, they don't. They frown upon that kind of stuff. So then went to Beaverton High School. That was where I went to my junior year.
And that's where you called it quits right there.
Yep. So, worked for that same company that hired me for the next 2 or 3 years, running high-level jobs. We did a lot of those high-rise condominium buildings down in the Pearl District.
Portland.
Portland. I probably built maybe 5, 6 of those that I personally, ran.
Like those big buildings in downtown Portland.
20-story buildings.
Wow.
Things like that. Yep. So really cut my teeth and learn the whole process, and finally decided, you know what? I bet I could be in business for myself. Why don't I give it a shot? So started doing tons of research on how to start a business, how to do stuff. I had no experience in that. And then got all my ducks in a row, figured it all out. I think I borrowed $1,000 from my parents to get it started, and quit my job and started doing it for myself. And that was a huge learning curve, because now, not only was I doing all the work in the field, I had to do all of the business work. So all the accounts receivable, accounts payable, taxes, all of the book work, all that kind of stuff. And it was a crash course on how to learn all that stuff, while also trying to work all day.
It takes balls to do all the stuff you did. Drop out of high school and then leave the company and call this dude a million times, and then wow,
it's crazy to look back on it and think about it.
What were your parents thinking all through that?
They were pretty supportive over it. Both my parents are business people, so they had a lot of advice for me on how to do things. They put me in contact. Again, I was just asking a lot of questions, and so I was put into different resources of people that would teach me or help me with certain different things. And so I just learned a lot about business and the way that it works and how to manage money and finances and pay all the bills. And eventually I had 7 or 8 guys working for me, doing jobs all around and things like that. And so just, you know,
How long
learning.
did it take for you to take off? And at what age were you when you actually started that company on your own?
I think I was 28 or 29, somewhere around in there.
Mm.
Um, so, I'd matured a lot and, kind of had a good footing underneath me. Um, but yeah, I did that for 10 years and it was great. I loved every single bit about it. The hard part was we started having kids and all of a sudden, I'm working 60 or 70 hours a week doing everything, all the work out in the field, plus all the business aspects of it. And I just didn't want to be a dad that was always at work. I wanted to make sure I spent time with my kids and enjoyed their life growing up because you only get one shot. And so, a lot of thought about that. And I thought, well, maybe my business is marketable. Maybe I could sell it to somebody. So started asking around, instantly had 3 other plumbing companies that wanted to basically absorb my business and my guys that work for me, all my equipment, tools, and all that kind of stuff. And so it turned into a little bit of a bidding war. And finally agreed that this one shop was going to be the shop that I was going to go to. So they paid me for my business and then also gave me a job.
That's great.
So
That's great.
got a job and got paid and came out whole, and then, was basically doing a little bit of what I do now, estimating and running jobs and things like that, not actually working in the field.
Do you ever think that you could have maybe hired some managers and continued your own business?
That was sort of so I had reached a point where it was like, okay, we're growing still. We've got a lot of good things going for us. I either have to make a choice of selling the business or, taking out a huge loan to grow the business and hire a bunch of people and get an office and kind of taking that next step. So I was sort of at that crossroads of go this way or go that way. And I decided at that point in time, it was better for me to just sell the business and get my time back and just work for somebody else.
And at what point was your son born?
He was born probably, I'd been in business for myself maybe 2 or 3 years before Liam was born.
How old were you?
I would have been 30, 32. So yeah, about 4 years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So
you have a very unique story. I don't know if you've heard that before.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes I look back on it and I think about it and can't believe that, for one, I am where I am because all the cards are stacked against me, right? You hear about people dropping out of high school and usually it's not a good story.
Yeah, no,
that comes out of that. It's like jail, drugs, or, bad stuff that might happen. So I think I have definitely a super unique story to tell for sure.
I'm going to name some years, some ages.
Okay.
And you're going to have to give one piece of advice that you would have loved to share with yourself at that time period.
Okay. I'll try
the
my
number
best.
one piece of advice you would have given yourself. We'll start with 17.
17. I would say, it's hard because, my story turned out okay. So there's not a lot that I would change.
Yeah, no, I have kind of expected that answer, but if you had to say one piece of advice and only one.
I would say, I had probably a lack of respect for the teachers and the faculty that were trying to teach me and do the best things for me. I couldn't see that big picture in high school. I just wanted what I wanted to do. I was selfish in that regard. And so my advice would be stay the course, and finish what you started. That's probably one of my biggest regrets is that's one of the only things that in my life that I started and didn't really finish. I got my GED, but I didn't have all those experiences going through my senior year, having all those
You
senior
feel like
experiences.
there's a little bit left
Mm-hmm.
that you missed.
And I should have just stuck with it and then made the decision to do what I wanted to do with my life. But it led me to the path that I am here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of regrets, but that's probably the one piece of advice that I would get is just stay the course and have a little bit of respect for the people that are trying to teach you and help
Yeah. 21.
you. 21. Boy, that's a tough one. I think the question is, what piece of advice would I give myself? Save more.
Save more money.
Save more money. I was, making a great living and just spending every dime that I had on whatever, cars, trips, experiences, things like that. I didn't have the mindset or the the whereabouts to say maybe I should be contributing to some retirement or to some kind of investments or things like that. And if I had done that, I'd probably be retired by now. If I had made that commitment to say I'm just going to stick $100 in a retirement fund every single month or every single week or whatever I could afford instead of just spending it all, it'd be a lot different story.
Huge shout out to today's sponsor, My Golf Swing. Now, on a real note, if anybody wants to sponsor me, we are taking cash, Venmo, Apple Pay, Uber Eats, anything, bro. Just slide it my way. As we get back into the video, you may want to take out a notepad and take a pencil and start writing down all this stuff, because this is good information. Let's get back to it. Let's say like 28, 29.
Boy. Patience. That's probably why I wasn't as successful in high school too, is not a lot of patience. I want everything that I want and I want to get it. I want to go get it right now. I don't want anything given to me, but I want to go get it right now. And I think that hurt me in a lot of different ways because I was so eager and excited to go after stuff that sometimes I would overlook small steps, things like that. And I would try to look, okay, here's the steps to get to the things that you want to get. And then maybe it's 10 steps. And I'd be like, I'm going to do it in 5. And I would skip all these other steps. And then maybe it wouldn't be successful because I skipped these other steps. So steps are there for a reason so that you can be successful. And you got to take all the steps.
Like you take shortcuts, you mean, towards goals?
Yeah, or I would just not be fully engaged in it. I was trying to build a business, so I wanted all these jobs. And so, when I was going to bid stuff, I would sometimes get ahead of myself and go a little too quick. And then would maybe the job, I would only make a little bit of money on it, but not as much as I could have because I skipped steps to, getting that job or whatever.
So just patience on it.
Patience and then just slow down, slow down a little bit.
How about, you said you're 49 right now.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 5 years, what have you learned?
It's funny. What's become most important to me is time. Time is more valuable than anything. Where I'm at now, looking back on life, you're in such a hurry to get to, achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And then once you get there, money becomes less important. It's time. I look at, like Liam and Josie, for instance. Liam's a year and a half away from graduating high school and, being out on his own potentially or whatever, making all the decisions for himself. And, you don't get that time back. Time is the most important thing for me. Time with friends, family, things like that. I've worked, like I said, I've worked since I was 14. nonstop, always been employed. So always had, a job, commitments, all those kinds of stuff. And now I'm at the point where those things are important, but less important. Time is the most important thing for me.
Well, I think I'm out of questions.
Okay.
Tom, thank you so
Cool.
much for your
Xander.
time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I really do appreciate it.
I hope it was
Tom.
interesting.
Oh, it was very interesting.
Okay, cool, man. Thank you.
等
来等去，等来一场空。我们等来等去，等白了双鬓。我们等来等去，等来。